Mira Sanyal died at 2:14 in the morning. The official report says a truck crossed 2 lanes, struck the side of her cab, and forced it into a concrete divider. The driver survived. Mira didn't. That should have been the end of it. The problem is that Mira contacted me after she died, not before. After. I know how that sounds. If all I had was a story, I wouldn't believe it either. What I have is a timestamp. At 2:14 a.m., Mira's cab hit the divider. At 2:14 a.m., my phone received a voice message. The message was from Mira. We hadn't spoken in 4 months. Before she died, Mira was the one person who knew me better than I knew myself. We spent 3 years together. She knew my habits, my lies, my excuses, and every version of the future I kept promising to build. When we broke up, it wasn't because we stopped caring about each other. It was because caring stopped being enough. That is why the message mattered. Not because she was my ex, because Mira never said anything without a reason. The message was 11 seconds long. I have listened to it hundreds of times. I know every word. Dagnus, I recorded this for you because I don't know when you'll need it. I think you already know what happened. Don't look for the booth. It will find you. At the time, I didn't know what the booth was. I didn't know why a dead woman was warning me about it. And I definitely didn't know that her death was only the first case. 3 days later, I found a police photograph taken at the crash scene. In the background, 40 yards behind the wreckage, stood a glass structure with a red light above the door. A booth. The police never mentioned it. The witnesses never mentioned it. Yet it appeared in 7 separate photographs. That was the moment Mira's death stopped looking like an accident. That was the moment I started investigating the booth. 34 photographs were taken at that crash site. I have reviewed all of them. In 7 of those photographs, taken by 3 separate officers from 3 separate positions at 3 separate timestamps, a structure appears in the background. Glass walls, a door with a red light above it, standing in the grass 40 yards north of the wreck, as though it had been there for years. No officer noted it. No paramedic noted it. No witness statement references it. The booth does not appear in any photograph taken after 2:31 a.m. The last photograph in which it appears was taken at 2:29 a.m., between 2:29 a.m. and 2:31 a.m. in a sequence of photographs taken by the same officer facing the same direction. It disappears. No one moved it. No vehicle approached. No officer on scene reported seeing it leave. It was there, then it was not. My name is Dagnus Morrow. I am 27 years old. I work night deliveries for a courier platform in Hemlock County. I am not a detective. I am not a journalist. I am not qualified to investigate anything. What I am is the person who received Mira Sanyal's last message. Mira died at 2:14 a.m. on March 14th. Her message arrived on my phone at 2:14 a.m. on March 14th. The timestamp on the delivery log places her cab in contact with the divider at 2:14 a.m. and 31 seconds. Her voice reached me before her body had finished moving. The message was 11 seconds long. I have transcribed it exactly as it was recorded. The transcription reads, Dagnus, I recorded this for you because I don't know when you'll need it. I think you already know what happened. I think you've known for a while. Don't look for the booth. It will find you. I did not know what happened. I did not know what a booth was. I had not spoken to Mira in 4 months. The message did not come from her phone number. It did not come from any number. The metadata attached to the audio file lists the sender as a string of characters that my carrier's technical team described in writing as not a valid originating address within any known telecommunications format. And Mira had been dead for less than a minute when I heard her voice. This is not a ghost story. A ghost story requires the supernatural to remain conveniently unexplained. What I have instead are photographs, timestamps, a police report that omits a structure visible in its own evidence package, a voice message from a dead woman that arrived before she was legally dead. This is a documentation of events that occurred. I am going to tell you what I found. I am going to tell you what it cost. And I am going to tell you that at no point in this account will I ask you to believe anything I cannot support with evidence. The booth does not need you to believe in it. It already knows you're listening. I want to establish something before I go further, because the sequence of events matters more than any single piece of evidence. At 11:47 p.m. on March 13th, I picked up a delivery order from a Thai restaurant on Fenwick Street. The order was prepaid. The customer had left a note requesting contactless drop-off. I delivered it at 12:03 a.m. I logged the completion on my app. I moved on. At 1:19 a.m., I completed a second order, a pharmacy run, over-the-counter medication, 2 bottles of water, a receipt the customer never collected. At 2:03 a.m., I completed my third delivery of the night, a bag of groceries to an apartment building on Carver Road. The recipient was a man in his 60s who signed my screen without looking at me. I remember him specifically because of what I found in my delivery log when I reviewed it later. At 2:03 a.m., I was on Carver Road. Carver Road is 1.4 miles from the bypass where Mira died. My next logged order begins at 2:18 a.m. There is a 15-minute gap in my record. I have no memory of those 15 minutes. I remember completing the Carver Road delivery. I remember walking back to my bike. I remember nothing after that until I was moving again, 2 orders later, with no sense of having stopped. I have checked the GPS data attached to my account. My location during that window is listed as signal unavailable. This has happened to me before. The app is unreliable in dead zones near the industrial blocks on the east side of the county. Carver Road is not near the east side. Carver Road has consistent 4-bar signal. I tested it the following day. 15 minutes, no GPS record, no memory, no explanation. The bypass is a 6-minute ride from Carver Road. I am not claiming I was at the crash site. I have no evidence of that. What I have is an absence, a window of time, the right duration, in the right location, during which my presence cannot be confirmed or denied. At 2:14 a.m., Mira's cab hit the divider. At 2:14 a.m., a message from Mira arrived on my phone. I did not see that message until 3:04 a.m., when I finished my last delivery of the night and checked my notifications. The message had no sender identification. It appeared in my voicemail as a standard audio file, formatted correctly, playable without issue. I pressed play. 11 seconds. Her voice was steady, not panicked, not distressed. She sounded the way she used to sound when she was explaining something she considered obvious, a slight patience in it, the tone of someone who has already accepted a thing and is waiting for you to catch up. Dagness. I recorded this for you because I don't know when you'll need it. I think you already know what happened. I think you've known for a while. Don't look for the booth. It will find you. The phrasing is precise. She does not say, "I'm going to die." She does not say, "I've been in an accident." She does not tell me to call anyone, contact anyone, or do anything specific. She tells me not to look for the booth. Mira studied linguistics at Hemlock University for 2 years before she left the program. She was careful with language in a way that most people are not. She did not use words imprecisely. When she said, "I don't know when you'll need it," she was not speaking loosely. She was describing with precision a message that existed outside of normal time, one she had recorded without knowing when it would arrive. For a moment, she could not yet see. She already knew the message would be delayed. She already knew there would be a gap between recording and receiving. She already knew I would need it at a specific moment she could not name. I played the message 4 more times. Then I sat at my kitchen table and opened the evidence photograph package the Hemlock County Police Department had made available through their public disclosure portal. I had filed a request 6 days earlier, citing personal connection to the deceased. 34 photographs. I went through them in order. The first 18 were unremarkable: skid marks, divider impact, the cab's front end, emergency vehicles, officers on scene. The photographs were time-stamped, geotagged, and annotated with the photographing officer's badge number. Photograph 19 was the first image in which the booth appeared. I did not notice it on the first pass. I was looking at the foreground, the cab, the road surface, the position of the body before removal. The booth stood in the background, slightly left of center, in the grass verge between the road and the tree line. It was the size of a standard telephone box, glass walls, or something that functioned like glass. A door. Above the door, a red light. Small, steady, not flashing. I enlarged the image to maximum resolution. The booth was sharply in focus despite the background compression typical of crime scene photography. That detail matters. In photographs taken with standard law enforcement cameras at that focal length and distance, background objects at 40 yards typically display moderate blur. The booth did not blur. It appeared with the same sharpness as objects in the foreground, as though the camera had focused on it specifically, as though it had wanted to be seen. I checked photographs 20 through 34. The booth appeared in 7 of them. Photographs 19, 22, 24, 25, 29, 31, and 33. Each was taken by a different officer. Each was taken from a different angle. In photograph 24, shot from the north side of the road looking south, the booth was visible directly behind one of the paramedics, perhaps 15 feet from where he was working. He did not turn around. He did not acknowledge it. In the frame, the booth's red light is clearly visible above his left shoulder. Photograph 32 was taken at 2:29 a.m., no booth. The grass behind the scene is empty. Photograph 33, taken 47 seconds later by the same officer from a near-identical angle, shows the booth again. It had gone. Then it had come back. Photograph 34, the final image in the package, was taken at 2:31 a.m. No booth. That was the last time it appeared in the official record. I sat with photograph 29 for a long time. It was the clearest image of the booth, taken from directly east at a slight elevation, probably from the top of the concrete divider. The door faced me. Above the door, the red light. Through the glass, a shape. Too dark, too ambiguous to identify clearly at that resolution. A human shape, standing inside. I spent the remainder of the night trying to prove the booth had been mislabeled, that it belonged to another case, a different upload, a clerical error, that some evidence technician had confused their files and dropped 7 photographs from another scene into Mira's package. The EXEF data for each photograph contained GPS coordinates placing the images at the bypass. Each photograph's badge number matched the officer roster on Mira's report. The timestamps formed an unbroken chain. There was no error. The booth was there. And in photograph 29 in the corner of the door, partially obscured by the angle, only visible at maximum zoom, someone had etched a symbol into the glass. A circle, a vertical line through the center. I did not know what that symbol meant. I know now. I am going to tell you how I found out. At 3:58 a.m., my phone rang. The caller ID displayed one word: blocked. I answered on the 3rd ring. The man on the other end did not introduce himself. He did not ask if I was Dagnus. He did not say hello. He said, "You found the photograph." I asked who he was. He said, "You shouldn't be looking at those images." I asked how he knew what I was looking at. He paused. 3 seconds, maybe 4. When he spoke again, the tiredness in his voice was the first thing that struck me. Not threat, not anger, not the controlled patience of someone managing a dangerous situation. Exhaustion. The flat, hollowed-out fatigue of a person who has explained something too many times to people who do not survive the explanation. He said, "The same way I know you're going to visit the crash site tonight." I stood up. He said, "You need to stay away from the booth." The line went dead. I called back immediately. The number did not exist. My phone registered no incoming call. The call log was clean. Nothing between my last delivery confirmation and the current time. The conversation had happened. My call log said otherwise. That is where I need you to pay careful attention. Not to the supernatural element, the impossible timing, the vanishing structure, the message from a dead woman. I need you to focus on the administration of it, the way the call erased itself, the way the photographs persisted in the public record while no one who filed them noted what they showed, the way the booth appeared in 7 frames within 15 feet of working officers for approximately 20 minutes and generated no report, no notation, no comment from any person on the scene. This is not a story about something that goes bump in the dark. This is a story about a mechanism, something very old, very deliberate, and very organized, and it had just told me to stop. I drove to the bypass the following night. I want to be precise about my reasons. I was not looking for the booth. I was looking for the absence of it, for the physical evidence of what should and should not be possible. Photograph 29 placed the booth in a grass verge 40 yards north of the crash point. I wanted to stand in that grass. I wanted to measure the ground. I wanted to find footprints, tire tracks, a flattened area, a utility connection, a foundation. Anything that would confirm something physical had stood there. I parked on the shoulder and walked north, counting my paces. 41 yards. The grass was undisturbed, not pressed down, not cleared, not worn, no tracks, no cable conduits in the earth, no marks in the soil consistent with load-bearing posts or a leveled base. I spent 50 minutes on that verge. I photographed the ground at multiple angles. I used the flashlight on my phone. I crouched and looked at the soil directly. Nothing. The only object I found was a cigarette lighter, partially buried in the grass at the base of a drainage ditch approximately 3 yards south of where the booth had stood. It was cheap, the kind sold at gas stations in multi-packs, disposable, with a thin plastic body and a flint striker. It was old. The plastic had yellowed, and one side had been worn smooth by handling. On the other side, someone had scratched a symbol into the plastic with a sharp implement. A circle, a vertical line through the center. I put the lighter in my jacket pocket. I want to pause here and be transparent about something. By that point, I had found the same symbol in 2 separate locations, etched into the door of a structure that had appeared and vanished from a crime scene, and scratched into a discarded lighter found in the spot where that structure had stood. I am aware of what pattern recognition does to a mind under stress. I am aware that humans find connections that are not there. I have applied that awareness consistently throughout this account. But I also know what it means when the same marking appears twice in the same place, left by different hands at different times. Someone else had been in that grass. Someone else had found the same spot. Someone else had left something behind. I was standing with the lighter in my hand when I became aware of movement on the far side of the road. A man was standing opposite, at the edge of the shoulder, watching me. He was not hiding. He was not approaching. He stood with his hands at his sides, looking directly at me, with the stillness of someone who had been there for a while and was waiting to see what I would do. I raised my phone and attempted to photograph him. He turned and walked away, around the far end of a row of storage units that ran parallel to the road. I crossed the road. I went around the same end of the storage units. He was gone. The units backed onto a chain-link fence. The fence ran the full length of the block on 3 sides. The 4th side was the road. There were no open gates, no gaps in the fence, no vehicles, no footprints in the gravel. He had walked into an enclosed space and ceased to exist. I was processing this when I saw the envelope. It was attached to the chain-link fence with a single strip of electrical tape. White envelope, standard letter size. My name was written on the front in ballpoint pen, not printed, handwritten, Dagnus Morrow. The handwriting had a particular quality I recognized before I could name it. I opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph, black and white, poor resolution, as though printed from a digital file on a standard inkjet. It showed the booth. Not at the bypass. The background was different. The tree line wrong, the road not visible. Some other location. The photograph's timestamp, printed in the lower right corner, read, March 11th, 2016. Standing beside the booth, one hand on the doorframe, looking directly into the camera lens, was a man. I recognized him from the news archive I had reviewed 2 days earlier while cross-referencing Mira's accident. Detective Marcus Reed, Hemlock County Police Department, missing since March 14th, 2016, declared legally dead in 2019. His disappearance had been classified as a voluntary departure despite his wife, 2 children, and active caseload suggesting otherwise. Marcus Reed's documented disappearance date was March 14, 2016. The photograph was taken 3 days after that date. He was standing beside the booth 11 days after he was supposed to have vanished. He was looking at whoever held the camera, with an expression I have studied at length in the days since. It is not fear, it is not surprise. It is the expression of a person delivering a message they know will take years to reach its recipient. On the back of the photograph, in the same handwriting as the envelope, were 6 words. He received the message too. Not, he found the booth. Not, he saw the booth. Not, he investigated the booth. He received the message. The language is exact. The message came to him. The same way Mira's message came to me. The same mechanism. The same sequence. Reed had been drawn into a chain that predated him. The same way I was now being drawn into a chain that predated me. I drove home with the photograph on the passenger seat. At 2:14 a.m., a notification appeared on my phone. 1 new voice message. Unknown sender, no number, no attached account, no location metadata, only a timestamp. 2:14 a.m. The same time Mira's message had arrived. I pressed play. The woman's voice was calm in a way that took several seconds to register as unusual. Calm the way a person is calm when they have accepted something catastrophic and are now simply informing others of the facts. As of this recording, I have been dead for 11 years. My name is Evelyn Hart. If you received this, then the booth has chosen another witness. Witness, not victim, not customer, not target. Witness. Do not believe anyone who tells you the booth predicts death. They are wrong. Do not believe anyone who tells you the booth causes death. They are wrong too. If you're listening to this, you're asking the wrong question. The recording ended. I searched for Evelyn Hart immediately. Missing person, filed 11 years prior. Declared dead after standard waiting period. Body never recovered. Last known location, Hemlock County. The same county. Marcus Reed had disappeared in Hemlock County. Mira had died in Hemlock County. Evelyn Hart had vanished in Hemlock County. The same stretch of geography. The same entity. The same chain. Evelyn Hart's missing person file included a photograph. Standard documentation, face forward, neutral background, filed at time of report. She was standing in front of a row of trees. The quality was average, the kind of personal photograph a family provides when their person goes missing because there is nothing else. Behind her, at the tree line, partially obscured, glass walls, a door, a red light above the door. The booth, 11 years ago, looking exactly as it did in photograph 29. Not similar, not consistent with. Exactly the same. The same proportions, the same door frame, the same light position. The glass had no scratches, no weathering, no sign of age or maintenance or time. A structure that had stood for at least 11 documented years, probably far longer, showing no deterioration whatsoever. I enlarged the image until the door was visible. On the door, partially legible through the resolution loss, 2 words. I could make out only those 2 words from what appeared to be a longer text. Final message. I was still looking at the image when a second notification arrived. Not a voice message, a photograph. No sender, no caption. The image showed a police evidence board. The cork-backed kind used in active investigations, covered in pinned photographs connected by red string. The photographs included Mira, Marcus Reed, Evelyn Hart, and at least 12 other faces I did not recognize. In the center of the board, larger than the others, a single photograph of the booth. At the bottom of the image, a handwritten note on a yellow index card read, "He knows now." Someone had been building this investigation for years. Someone had connected these cases before I existed in this story. The board was organized, methodical, labeled. This was not an obsessive wall. This was structured evidence work, the kind of thing a detective does when they are certain of a connection but cannot yet prove it. The detective who had spent years building that board was Marcus Reed. I know that now. At the time, I only knew that someone had sent me a photograph of it. My apartment doorbell rang at 2:14 a.m. I did not check the time first. I went to the door. I opened it. The hallway was empty. On the floor in front of my door was a cardboard box, unsealed. Inside, a cassette recorder. Old, functional, the plastic worn in the grip areas from use. A cassette tape had already been loaded into the deck and rewound to the beginning. Attached to the recorder with a rubber band was a note card. The handwriting matched the envelope from the bypass. The note card read, "Press play if you want to know why Marcus Reed disappeared." I looked down the hallway in both directions. I stepped out. I looked around the corner toward the stairwell. Nobody. I carried the recorder inside. I sat at my kitchen table. I pressed play. The tape hissed for 2 seconds. Then a man's voice, measured, deliberate, the voice of someone speaking into a recorder with the awareness that whoever eventually listens may be doing so under pressure. "My name is Marcus Reed. I am a detective with Hemlock County PD. The date is March 8th, 2016. If you're hearing this, I am probably dead. If I'm not dead, something worse has happened. I've been investigating disappearances in Hemlock County for 3 years, 14 cases, all cold, all connected. I can prove the connection, but I cannot explain it. What I can do is document what I found in the order I found it, so that whoever comes after me has a head start. The first thing you need to understand is that the booth does not appear to everyone. I have reviewed missing person cases from this county going back 40 years. The booth appears in the evidence records of specific cases only. I have been trying to identify the selection criteria. I cannot. The cases share no demographic pattern, no geographic cluster beyond the county, no behavioral similarity between the individuals involved. The only common factor I have found is this. Every person connected to the booth had recently received or was about to send a message they considered irreplaceable. The booth collects those messages. I don't know if it stores them, delivers them, or consumes them. I have found evidence for all 3 theories. I have found evidence against all 3. What I know is that the messages leave the booth and reach their recipients every single time, with one modification. The messages are always delivered late, always after a death, always at the moment the recipient would be most destroyed by receiving them. The timing is not accidental. Something is choosing it. I stopped the tape. I sat with that for a moment. Something is choosing it. Mira's message arrived as her body was still moving. Not after the crash, during it. At the precise second that her death became inevitable and irreversible, her voice reached my phone. The timing is not accidental. I pressed play again. In February of this year, I made contact with a woman named Evelyn Hart. Or rather, I made contact with her recordings. Evelyn Hart disappeared 11 years ago. She left behind 16 voice messages, all delivered to different recipients in Hemlock County, all arriving after a death, all time-stamped at 2:14 a.m. I have been trying to understand why 2:14 a.m. It is not a standard time. It is not round. It is specific. I now believe it is the time of Evelyn's death, though her cause of death is officially undetermined. Every message she recorded arrived at the moment of her death, converted into the recipient's local time zone. I checked my phone. Mira's message had arrived at 2:14 a.m. Evelyn Hart's recorded message had arrived at 2:14 a.m. Both on different dates, both time-stamped identically. The booth does not operate in standard time. I don't know what that means technically. What I know empirically is that messages recorded inside the booth appear to detach from the moment of recording and reattach to a different moment. Always a death. Always the most painful possible delivery window. A woman records a message for her son. He receives it 15 years later, the night before his own trial. A man records a message for his wife. She receives it the morning she identifies his body. A teenager records a message for her best friend. The friend receives it the night she attempts suicide, and it stops her. That last case I spent a long time with. Because it implies the booth doesn't only cause damage, it implies it makes choices, and sometimes it chooses to prevent a death rather than confirm one. I cannot explain why. I cannot find a pattern, but I cannot ignore it. What I can tell you about the structure itself, I have found 11 documented photographs of the booth across 14 missing person files spanning 40 years. In every photograph, the booth is in the same condition, same proportions, same door, same red light. No aging, no weathering, no variation. I have submitted 2 of these photographs to a forensic imaging specialist who confirmed, without knowing the context, that the images show a structure with no visible material aging between 2 photographs taken 31 years apart. Her exact words were, "Either this structure was photographed twice within days of construction, or it doesn't age." She declined to elaborate further when I told her the photographs were from different decades. I have one more piece of information that I have not shared with anyone at the department. 3 weeks ago, I found a file. It had been submitted to our cold case archive in 2009 by a retired officer named Patricia Voss. Officer Voss worked Hemlock County in the 1980s and 1990s. Her file contained a collection of documents she had assembled over her 22-year career, all relating to what she called the recurring structure. She never named it the booth. She called it the structure. Her file included photographs, witness statements, and 2 items I cannot explain. The first item was a newspaper clipping from 1931, Hemlock County Gazette, a brief article about a man named Elias Voss, no relation to Officer Voss, as far as I can establish, who reportedly vanished from his home in the early hours of March 14, 1931, leaving behind a workshop full of equipment his neighbors could not identify. The article notes that his daughter had disappeared years earlier, and that Elias had devoted his remaining years to a device he believed could recover what was lost. The article is 4 paragraphs. It mentions, in the 3rd paragraph, that investigators found in the workshop a glass cabinet of unusual construction, containing a single microphone and a small illuminated panel above the door. The second item in Officer Voss's file was a handwritten note. It was not in Officer Voss's handwriting. She had found it inside the glass cabinet, the booth, though she did not yet call it that, during an incident in 1987. She had entered it. She had come out. She had found the note in her own pocket when she reached her car. The note read, "You are not the first. You will not be the last. Every message creates a debt. The debt is paid in the only currency that cannot be counterfeited." The tape ran out. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Then I rewound it and played it again. 3 details stayed with me through the second listen, and the third, and the review sessions I ran in the days that followed. The first, Elias Voss's daughter disappeared before he built the device. He built it to recover what was lost. Then Elias disappeared. Then the booth appeared. The sequence implies the booth did not emerge from the device. It arrived through it, like a current finding a path. The second, Officer Voss entered the booth in 1987. She came out. She found a note in her pocket. She did not disappear. This is the only documented case in my evidence set where a person entered the booth and left alive. I have since found one other. I will address that when I reach it. The third, every message creates a debt. The debt is paid in the only currency that cannot be counterfeited. Reed had said the booth sometimes chose to prevent deaths. The teenager's message stopping a suicide. If the booth held messages until they could cause maximum damage, and yet sometimes deployed them to prevent a death, what was it optimizing for? Not grief, not trauma, not death itself. Something else. Something for which death was simply the most reliable instrument, the currency that cannot be counterfeited, the only currency that exists in infinite supply and can never be replicated, never inflated, never faked. Attention, urgency, the state of a mind that knows time is running out. The booth was not collecting messages, it was collecting the moments that make messages matter. The 10 days that followed Reed's tape were a documentation exercise. I will walk you through them in the order I assembled the evidence, because the sequence changes everything. Day 2. I filed a public records request for Marcus Reed's original case files. The request was denied on grounds that the materials were sealed pending review, despite Reed having been declared dead 4 years prior. Sealed pending review, an active hold on a dead detective's files. I noted the hold. I noted who filed it. I will come back to that. Day 3. I contacted Mira's cousin, Mira Sanyal. Mira is an investigative journalist. I had met her twice, both times briefly, at events Mira had invited me to. I called Ria because she had access to police records I did not, and because Mira had once described her as someone who treated impossibility as a research problem rather than a conversation stopper. Ria did not require convincing. That surprised me. When I outlined what I had found, the photographs, the messages, Reed's tape, the timeline, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I've had Mira's death report for 6 days. The booth is in 4 of the photographs. I thought I was seeing things." She had not told anyone. She had not filed anything. She had opened a folder on her laptop and started a log. Day 4. Ria pulled Evelyn Hart's original missing person file through a contact at the county archive. The file contained the expected items, photographs, timeline, family statements, and one item that was not expected. A voice recording submitted by Evelyn's neighbor as part of the original investigation. The neighbor had heard Evelyn's voice through the wall at approximately 11 p.m. on the night she disappeared, speaking clearly in the tone of someone making a deliberate statement. The neighbor had found this unusual because Evelyn lived alone. There was no one to speak to. The recording was 22 seconds long. The archive had flagged it as irrelevant to the investigation. No one had followed up on it. No one had traced its origin. We played it. Evelyn's voice, the same voice from the message on my phone, not distressed, precise. I am recording this inside the booth on the night I die. I don't know who will receive this or when. I know the booth will deliver it correctly. It always does. Tell whoever receives it. The booth has never been empty. In every photograph where it appears to be empty, look again. Something is always inside. I returned to the photographs that night. All 7 images in which the booth appeared in Mira's crash scene package. I enlarged the interior of the booth in each one to maximum resolution. In photographs 19, 22, and 25, the interior appeared dark and indistinct, standard deep shadow through glass at night. In photograph 24, the paramedic working 15 feet from the booth, the red light visible above his left shoulder. I looked at the interior again, without the assumption that what I was seeing was optical noise. There was a figure inside the booth, standing at the microphone. In a crime scene photograph taken at 2:24 a.m., 10 minutes after Mira's death, something was inside the booth recording a message. Day 5. Ria made contact with a forensic audio specialist, a retired academic who had worked cold cases for a state attorney's office for 12 years. She sent him the neighbor's recording of Evelyn Hart. She sent him the original audio file of Mira's message. She sent him Reed's tape. He called back in 14 hours. He was not calm. The audio signature of all 3 recordings was identical. Not similar, identical. The same room tone, the same microphone response curve, the same faint background resonance that he described as consistent with an enclosed glass structure in an outdoor environment. 3 recordings made years apart by different people at different times in what the audio data confirmed was the same physical location. All 3 had been recorded inside the booth, including Reed's tape. Reed had not been sitting in a chair at a desk with a consumer cassette recorder. Reed had been inside the booth when he made that recording. The tape I had found in the cardboard box outside my door was a copy, or the original, delivered the only way the booth delivers things, after a death. Day 6 through 8, Ria cross-referenced the 12 unidentified faces on the evidence board with county missing person records going back 40 years. She matched 9 of them. All 9 had disappeared in Hemlock County. All 9 had open or cold cases. All 9 had evidence packages that, when she requested specific photographs, contained at least one image in which a structure matching the booth's description appeared in the background. Not confirmed in the official record, not noted by investigators, present in the photographs. 9 additional cases, 23 years of documented booth appearances in official law enforcement photography, noted by no one. The booth had been standing in the background of Hemlock County's crime scenes for 2 decades of documented evidence, present in photographs, ignored by every officer who filed them. I want to sit with that for a moment, not because it is supernatural, though it is. I want to sit with it because of what it requires. For the booth to appear in 23 years of law enforcement photographs without generating a single notation, a single internal report, a single conversation between officers, something has to be happening to the people who see it. Not a cover-up. A cover-up requires awareness and choice. What I am describing is the absence of awareness. Officers who photographed the booth stood near it and then filed reports in which it did not exist. As though the booth were not something they saw, as though it were something they forgot before they could write it down. Day 9, I found the note from Officer Patricia Voss, not the one Reed had described from her file. A second note. Ria found it in the archive, submitted separately in an unsealed envelope tucked into the back of an unrelated traffic case from 1994. It had been there for 30 years. No one had cataloged it. It was written on Voss's departmental letterhead. I have tried to write this report 5 times. Each time, by the time I reach the relevant section, I cannot remember what I was going to say. I know something happened. I know it was important. I know it involved a structure. I am writing this in my car, immediately after leaving the archive, before the memory leaves again. The structure is glass. The light above the door is red. I went inside. I should not have done that. I came out. The message I left inside will reach the right person. I do not know who they are yet. Neither does the booth. But it will find them. The note ended there. The message Officer Voss left inside the booth in 1987. I had been inside the booth's circle of consequence since the moment Mira's voice reached my phone. Voss's message had been waiting in the booth for 37 years, for the right recipient. At 11:48 p.m. on day 9, my phone received a notification. One new voice message, unknown sender, timestamp, 2:14 a.m., displayed as a future time. The message had arrived before its timestamp. I pressed play. A woman's voice I did not recognize, older, deliberate, the cadence of someone who had thought carefully about every word. My name is Patricia Voss. I'm a police officer with Hemlock County PD. The year is 1987. I am recording this inside the booth. I don't have long. It wants me to leave. I can feel it. The way you can feel a room that's been empty for a long time suddenly want to be empty again. I have one thing to tell you. I found his file. The first file. Elias Voss. He was not building a device to recover what he lost. That is what he told people. What he was actually doing was building a door. He thought he could control what came through it. He could not. The booth is not his device. The booth is what answered. It has been answering ever since. The message ended. Day 10. I received an offer. I am going to describe it precisely because this is the point in the account where a reasonable person would stop, would weigh the risks, would consider the implications of continuing. A reasonable person would decline. I received it through a channel I cannot identify, a messaging application I do not use, on a phone that had not accepted contact from unknown senders since I changed my settings on day 2. The message bypassed every filter. The sender identified themselves only as the archivist. The message read as follows. You have been thorough, more thorough than most. Reed lasted 3 months before he went inside. Evelyn lasted 6 weeks. You have lasted 10 days, and you have not yet approached the booth directly. That is unusual. It suggests either exceptional restraint or that you already understand on some level what entering means. I have the complete archive. Reed's files, Voss's files, 37 other cases spanning 90 years, photographs, recordings, case notes, medical reports, and 6 items I have not shared with anyone. I am offering you access. The condition is simple. You must enter the booth. I read the message 3 times. Then I typed back, "Why do you need me to enter it?" The response came in 4 seconds. I don't. The booth does. I put my phone down. I picked it up again. I typed, "What happens to people who enter the booth?" The response, "They leave a message." I typed, "And after that?" 3 seconds. Some of them leave the booth as well. The implication sat on the screen in plain language. Some, not all. I typed, "This is not a good offer." The response came immediately. "That's the problem. There is no such thing as too good an offer." I stared at those words for a long time, because they were not a threat. They were not a sales pitch. They were not a manipulation. They were a statement of fact, delivered by someone who had been watching this process long enough to understand it from the inside. There is no such thing as too good an offer, not when the offer comes from the booth's orbit. Every person I had documented had received something they could not refuse. Mira received the ability to speak after death. Reed received confirmation that his years of investigation were not delusion. Evelyn Hart received something. I did not yet know what. Voss received a note in her pocket and 37 years of a memory she could not hold. What had the booth offered each of them? Not the archivist's terms, the booth's terms, before the archivist, before any human intermediary. What did the booth offer that made them enter? I went back through everything I had. Reed's tape. I am recording this inside the booth on the date of March 8th, 2016. He entered willingly. He knew what it was by then. He had 3 years of investigation behind him. He knew what had happened to Evelyn Hart. He entered anyway. Evelyn's recording. I am recording this inside the booth on the night I die. She knew it was the night of her death. She entered knowing. She entered in order to leave the recording that would eventually reach me, as though leaving the message was worth the cost of entering. Voss. I went inside. I should not have done that. The only documented regret, the only person who came out and appeared to remain functionally intact, Voss had not disappeared. Voss had lived through the 1990s, filed reports, worked her career, and submitted a note that she could not maintain the memory to complete. She had gotten out. She had paid a different price, a hole where the memory should have been, and 37 years of knowing something had happened without being able to name it. The booth had taken something from each of them. From Mira, her life, or at least the end of it. Though whether the booth caused the crash or simply recorded the final message of a woman already dying is a question I cannot answer. From Reed, his physical presence in the world. He had been photographed 3 days after his disappearance. He was inside the booth's orbit, apparently alive, apparently functional. Where was he after that photograph? The archive might tell me. The archivist had the archive. From Evelyn, 11 years and counting. From Voss, the ability to remember. The specific memory of what was inside. The access to the truth of what she had seen, replaced by a compulsion to document something she could not name. These are not random costs. They are calibrated, proportional, not to what the person did inside the booth, but to what they brought into it. The thing they could least afford to lose. Mira brought love, unresolved, frustrated, real. The kind that leaves messages for people who might not deserve them for reasons that don't survive examination. The booth took the rest of her life. Reed brought evidence. Years of meticulous, carefully organized, professionally documented evidence. The entire weight of his investigative identity. The booth took his presence in the physical world while apparently preserving his voice in its archive. Voss brought caution. The trained, professional skepticism of a career officer. The booth took the specific memory of what she had found, leaving her unable to report the one thing she had uncovered. The currency that cannot be counterfeited. The booth was not taking random things. It was taking the most valuable thing each person brought through the door, the thing they had most carefully built and most needed intact. What would I bring? I sat with that question for a long time. I typed back to the archivist, "How many people have taken your offer?" 4. How many came out? A pause longer than the others. 2. What happened to the other 2? They left messages, which meant they had entered, recorded, and the booth had kept them. Or they had entered, recorded, and vanished the way Reed vanished, photographically present, physically absent, alive in whatever sense the booth preserved the people it took. I thought about Voss's note. I came out. I thought about what she had lost in exchange. I thought about Reed's tape and the audio specialist's confirmation that he had recorded it inside the booth, probably on or near the date of his disappearance, possibly knowing he would not be coming back the same way he had gone in. Reed had entered the booth knowing. He had made that choice with 3 years of evidence in front of him, evidence that documented what the booth did to people, what it cost, what it took. He had entered anyway. Because the archive was inside, because the complete record was inside, because 90 years of evidence, every case, every connection, every recording, every cost, was accessible only through the thing that had generated it. There is no such thing as too good an offer, not when the offer is the truth. I typed, "Where is the booth right now?" The response was a set of GPS coordinates, Hemlock County, not the bypass. A different location. The coordinates placed it in a field 3 miles east of the crash site, between the industrial blocks and the tree line, in a stretch of land that appeared, on the satellite image I pulled up immediately, to be empty. It won't stay there long. It moves. But when it wants to be found, the coordinates hold. It wants to be found right now? It wants to be found by you right now. That's different. I looked at the lighter on my table, the circle, the vertical line, the same symbol etched into the booth's door in photograph 29. I had been carrying it since the first night. I had found it in the exact spot where the booth had stood. I had been carrying the booth's marking in my pocket for 10 days. Not because I found a lighter in the grass, because the booth had left it there for me, specifically, for the person who would eventually stand in that spot, 41 yards north of the crash site, measuring the distance with their own paces, for the person the booth had already identified before they knew they were being identified. "Don't look for the booth. It will find you." Mira had warned me, 11 seconds, before her body had stopped moving. She had told me exactly what was going to happen, and I had not understood the warning until this moment, sitting at my kitchen table with the GPS coordinates on my screen and the lighter in my hand, and the knowledge that the booth already knew I was coming, because I was already carrying its mark. The phone screen dimmed. The archivist's thread showed, "You're already on your way." I had not replied. I had not moved. The cursor blinked. I looked at the door, then back at my phone, then at the lighter. The archivist sent one final message, 7 words. "The red light will be on for you." What does the booth actually want from Dagnus?